Hi there. This is my first video essay. Um, I never felt that my voice politically was very significant, so I never really considered it to be a great contribution for me to make a video. But the election results this week in the U.S. have really brought to my attention, I think, the need for a discussion in our current environment about masculinity in liberal or progressive politics. And of course, I should do the contextualization by stating that I've been a registered Democrat since 1994. I supported Bill Clinton. I was very antagonistic to the Bush administration. I supported Kerry, Obama, Hillary, Biden, and Harris. And there was in 2000, I was among those who sort of thought Ralph Nader was a bit more of a viable candidate because he was a non-establishment guy, and Bush really convinced me that there's a big difference between Democrats and Republicans, and I committed to the Democratic Party under the Bush administration. Emotionally, I was very all in, and never would have ever considered shifting away from the Democratic Party until honestly until the last 4 years. And that's the subject of this video. Is I supported Harris because I liked Harris, but not because I supported the Democratic Party. I liked Harris as a candidate and thought she is very stateswoman-like, and felt that she had leadership qualities that we need in this country at the moment. It had absolutely nothing to do with her identity. It had absolutely nothing to do with her running mate. It had everything to do with who she is, and it didn't even have anything to do with being anti-Donald Trump, which I have been ardently anti-Donald Trump. Like, I was genuinely excited about Harris. Having said that, I can say I am not genuinely disappointed that Trump won. And this is really important message, is why am I not? In 2016, I was devastated. I really thought the world was going to end, and I thought the world was going to explode, and it kind of did with COVID, and that's sort of a topic that maybe I will talk about on another video. I don't know if I'll get to it on this video, but the emotional journey that I've had has been extra political, because it engages in the sense of strictly the political sphere of US politics. It engages the entertainment industry, it engages academia. I'm a very well-educated individual, as are a lot of the Democratic Party. I have multiple graduate degrees, and I work in academia. And I do not believe that academia, our entertainment industry, including Hollywood and streaming services, streaming platforms, productions represent my identity, and talking heads, pundits on news programs talk a lot about identity politics, and I feel very excluded. And if identity of a white male, of a white American male, is discussed, it's almost always in a attack mode, and as a rational individual who understands history, I can say I have accepted, that situation as a kind of a correction to history. The United States was founded at the end of the dark ages of human consciousness. I mean, we still enslaved each other. We still truly believed might makes right. I mean, we had structures in place that enforced that very principle. And the United States was a light in that darkness, for sure, but it still had a lot of that darkness. And I see the history of the United States as a movement out of that darkness. So yes, there was a lot of oppression from white men in American history, but there was an awful lot of moves from white men to change that oppression. And the discussion about that, the discussion about white masculine contribution to diversity, to progress, to the enlightening of our consciousness, is shoved under the carpet in our public discourse. It's not only the United States, it's the entire West. And I have accepted that for 20 years, 25 years, since I've been an adult and politically conscious and politically active. I've accepted that as the correction to history. Okay, we need to see what's the negative side of European masculinity, American masculinity, and in order to allow traditionally more oppressed people, more marginalized people, to rise to the surface. The problem with that is that eventually we end up at this election, and twice we see Democrats defeated by an individual who represents exactly the type of masculinity that we're trying to move away from. And I do believe that there's a large portion of a sizable percentage of supporters of the other guy who truly believe that that style of masculinity is preferable. But my own emotional reaction to this election convinces me that even though rationally I can discourse about all these things that I've just talked about, but emotionally I'm not that upset. And that raises this need to have this discussion. Why am I not that upset? Because there is a masculinity, an American masculinity, that is continuing under Trump, that has been almost eradicated in democratic discourse. This is the best way that it's probably not the best way that I can say it. It's the way that I can say it off the top of my head, because I don't have any notes here. So I haven't carefully planned out what I'm going to say. This is just a heartfelt response. I don't agree with that masculinity, but I can at least say, well, emotionally, I can say, well, like, we've got strong masculine actors in the Trump circle who maybe are unsavory to some, but they're doing sort of exciting masculine types of things, and they're not afraid to be masculine, whether that angers people or not. And emotionally, I feel we need that. Emotionally, I feel the Democratic Party needs that. And for me, for my view, this election demonstrates that the Democratic Party has failed to give voice to masculinity. There's no place in the Democratic Party for particularly white masculinity. The discourse, as I understand it, and I haven't looked, there's a Democratic website that lists people that the Democratic Party serves, and white masculinity is not among them. So I say all that, but there's a caveat, and it's an important caveat, which I referenced at the beginning of this video, which is this: identity isn't that damn important to me. Like, it's important in the sense that nobody wants to be marginalized. Nobody wants to be eradicated. But I'm not supporting Donald Trump just because he's a man over Harris because she's a woman. I supported Harris because I liked her. Because, as I said, and despite the fact that I didn't like Tim Walz, like, anybody who's watching this, maybe even my friends will hate what I'm about to say. I like J.D. Vance. I prefer J.D. Vance to Tim Walz. It wasn't about identity. It was about substance. It was about self-presentation. It was about a whole sort of constellation of qualities that supersede identity. I just don't understand our fixation on things like representation and identity over substance, and believe that people are going to come out and watch a Disney production of superheroes that the substance is really poor, but just because it's women. Like this is a whole other discussion, but as I said at the beginning, there's an intersection for me between entertainment industry, culture, academic discourse, and politics that is driving me away from the Democratic Party. And I know, not only in my heart, but I have studied and analyzed myself enough to be sure that I'm not racist, I'm not misogynist. I have one of the most diverse social networks of anybody that I know, because I've been a digital nomad for 15 years, and most of my friends are Asian. And that includes a lot of Muslims. And here's a side note, which I'm in Malaysia at the moment, and significantly, a large number of my Muslim friends, and I have very, very close Muslim friends, are overjoyed at a Trump victory because they truly believe Trump has the best chance of bringing peace. Let that settle in. A man who will enact a Muslim ban whose entire rhetoric includes anti-Islamic sort of diatribes, and the way Trump is, Muslims around the world believe he has a better chance of bringing peace to the world than a Democrat. You have got to understand that. That is, if you cannot grasp how significant that is, then there's something really broken about the political discourse of the Democratic Party. And I'm not saying, that that would surprise me. Like, I'm to the point where I'm like, yeah, actually, there is something broken about the political discourse of the Democratic Party. And that's why I'm making this video. So my response to this election is, okay, fine, Trump won. Let's see what he can do. He has put his people in place. Not the Republican Party, he has taken the Senate and taken the House of Representatives. He's got a cadre of strong, incredibly intelligent, very powerful men around him who are determined to carry forth their agenda. And I'm to the point where I'm like, fine, let's see what they can do. Let's see what contribution they're going to make, because to be quite honest, I did not feel like I was part of the Democratic platform. And I supported Harris only because of her, because of Harris. I think that the platform itself was had some stronger points that I believed, and I believe that Harris's economic plan was better than Trump's economic plan because of the analysis, essentially, of people who know more about these things than I do. I'm very, very concerned about the debt. I think a lot of us are, and I believe that the Democrats have a better handle on that, but I think the Republicans do a better job of convincing people that they have a better handle on it. So it's too bad that the Democrats, and this may actually, this seems tangential, but it may actually be part of what I'm talking about, is that by leaving masculinity out of the Democratic platform, you do nothing to convince men, American men, of all identities. That's hugely significant. Of all identities, you do nothing to convince American men that you have a grasp of the economic situation in the United States. And to be quite fair, J.D. Vance's argument about, well, if you have such great ideas, you had 4 years to do them, why didn't you do them? Like, that hit home with me. Like, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I mean, he has a really good point. And I think that it resonated with a lot of people. Honestly, a lot of men. So the Democratic Party presented no reason why abortion should be a masculine concern. And there are arguments out there that on why abortion is a masculine concern. I didn't hear any of that discourse from the Democrats. I come from a very, very conservative family, and every woman in my family supports or is anti-abortion. And the very, very strong rhetoric from the Democrats about if you're anti-abortion, you're undemocratic, or every woman is pro-choice, just honestly, it just angered me, because every woman in my family is pro-life. And that's a terrible term. I'm going to say anti-abortion. And they are as democratic in their thought processes, as democratic in the sense of we live in a democracy, as anybody, like, ever. Like, they're not the most, they're just as much as anybody. Like to call them undemocratic because they're anti-abortion is absurd and completely alienating to me, and and it and it makes me feel like the democratic, like the culture of the Democratic Party and the progressive movement in the United States has become completely irrational. Completely irrational. The border situation is another one. It is not absurd to say we should enforce immigration law. There's nothing absurd about that. But yet, if you say that in a room full of Democrats, you're likely to get attacked. You're likely to get strung up. Like, like it feels that severe. So there are a lot of discussions that need to be made, that need to be had, and where masculine voices need to be heard. And here's one from the academic discourse, which is this practice of stating our pronouns. I do not want to self-identify as a man. Call me what you want to call me. So I'll just say I'm they, theirs, because I'm not going to say I'm he, his, and then just put myself in that bubble. Like, you think, it seems like you think we want to define as a man. I have a lot of femininity in me. I'm not trans, I'm not gay, I'm straight. But that doesn't mean I identify as a man in every essence of my being and want to pronounce it to the world. So you're putting me in a situation with these pronoun things where I'm like, look, you know what? Yeah, I absolutely support gay rights, trans rights. I have a lot of queer friends. I learn a lot from my queer friends, a lot about how to think about the world, about how to think about myself in the world, about how to think about identity, about how to navigate difference and diversity. And these relationships are incredibly important to me, but I react when I'm asked to define myself and put myself into a masculine box. So obviously this video is about masculinity, and one of the messages that I want to say is that I just don't hold on to this identity as strongly as you guys seem to think, but it is still important. And there is still an emotional response to feeling marginalized, to feeling left out. And we have got to, the progressive Democratic Party has got to come to a place where we are including all of these varieties and diversities in a way that is not automatically excluding others. I do not perceive the history of the United States as this oppressive evil that academics and pundits, talking heads, and a large part of our culture want us to believe it is, because I truly believe in the promise of the United States, and I truly see that promise has been opened consistently to other peoples. But I can't walk into a room full of Democrats and say, hey, what about Abraham Lincoln? What about Ulysses S. Grant? What about Teddy Roosevelt? What about the men in Congress in the early 20th century who, or all over the world, who voted to give women rights, voted to give them the vote? I mean, this is men who did that. like, this is how I perceive the United States, but as long as our discourse, the discourse of the Democratic Party, the discourse of liberal academia, the discourse of Hollywood keeps telling American males, you're the problem, the way you feel is the problem, the way you feel about your history is the problem, you're just going to drive them further and further to the likes of Donald Trump. And I promise you that rationally, I am opposed to my own emotional response. My own emotional response of like, so he won. I don't really care. Rationally, I'm like, you know what? He's a huge, huge problem. Emotionally, I'm like, I don't care. Because the Democratic Party, liberal politics, mainstream media, academia has done nothing but drive me away. And I'm one of the most centrist people that I know. So if you're driving me away, you're driving people who are a little bit further to the right, who might be able to be brought into the left. You're driving them way away, way away. I'm a very, very diverse individual. I celebrate diversity. I love all of my diverse friends. I feel very blessed. And you're driving me away. That's, if you don't hear that, then it doesn't matter. You know, it will take a catastrophe in these next 4 years for the Republicans to lose the next election cycle. I mean, really, if they do a good job, if they bring the country back from, you know, inflation, they'll keep the dominance in 2022. And the problem with that is that it is a patriarchy. You've got to change how you're talking about the patriarchy. You've got to change how you're struggling against the patriarchy, because you can't say men are the problem. First, it's not true. Men have contributed to the freedom of everybody in profound ways in this country. Profound ways. Secondly, it's bad politics. The more you do that, the more you're driving them into the arms of Trump. That it's the most important message I have. So this is the first video that I'm making. I have a lot of other topics that I'll talk about. We'll see how I do, but yeah, that's the way I see it. And it's clear to me that my voice is important. I have no idea who will ever watch this. I might have two viewers, but I've got to take a stand, because Donald Trump is a problem, and his form of masculinity is a problem, but the Democrats are not solving the problem. They are contributing to it. They are adding to it. And that's got to be understood. Thanks for listening.